I'm Andrea DeSenko. I'm part of the scholarship committee. I'm a college prep advisor working here at the school. And the other two people to go to with scholarship notebook questions, in addition to myself, are Katie Kozlowski. She's the 11th grade counselor, also on the scholarship committee, and Matthew Moore in that corner. He is the guidance secretary and in charge of a good number of scholarship notebook details. So those are your three people to contact throughout this process if you have any questions. Let's jump right in to what is a scholarship notebook. So I want to know my audience first. How many of you have worked with scholarship notebook before with another student? 1, 2, 3. Okay, very good. About 60% of you. How many brand new to scholarship notebook? All right, more hands. So we have, it's a pretty even split. So the easiest way I find to describe it is this is a tool and just see dollar signs, money for the future. So the number in that first point is what our local donors gave to our seniors just last year. And every year I've been at the school, it's been over $500,000. Last year, seniors, less than 100 seniors even did a scholarship notebook. So do some math and you can figure out that some seniors made out very well. I always like to say that future plans can include a myriad of things, and I even had a senior last year who was wanting to join a union, and the dues were over $1,000 to join, and scholarship notebook was an option to get those union dues paid. So 4-year, 2-year, trade school, tech school, anything after high school that involves paying for training, scholarship notebook is for you. And as to what it actually is, for those of you brand new to scholarship notebook, it's a collection, a scrapbook, a portfolio of your seniors' 9th through 12th grade accomplishments. This can be academic, it can be personal, and certainly extracurricular, anything that the student has been up to these past 4 years. All right, as far as the logistics of creating a scholarship notebook, it is all digital now. So do I have any who worked with seniors back when it was the green folder? Okay, very good. So some of you remember 5 years ago or so when you actually printed it out and it could actually have that scrapbook feel. That is in the past. For the past 3 senior classes, it has been all PDF format, so digital format, and that's how we will do it again this year. You will need a computer or a Chromebook. It is extremely difficult to do on a phone, so make sure that you have access to those. The school has Chromebooks for every student, so let us know if you need one. And I already have 189 seniors in the Google Classroom, so that's exciting. If you haven't gained access yet, that's the code. And the next slide shows you what this looks like. So how many Running Start students do I have represented here? All right, 4, 5, 6. So a habit of Running Start students is you can get out of the habit of checking your Port Angeles Google. Try to get back into that habit, especially senior year, because a lot of announcements come via your Port Angeles Google account. So you'll log into your Google account, you'll click that waffle in the corner, and Google Classroom will be an option. You can also just Google Classroom and jump into it. This is the home page. To get to Scholarship Notebook, you'll click on Classwork, and then, all right, it will bring you right to those templates. So the templates are guides, and we'll go through each page and show you what the template looks like, and then you can feel free to customize most of the templates, but that is where you find them. All right, we're going to go by page, so in your handout that you received, you can feel free to follow along. There are little things on almost every page that I'm going to be saying that aren't in the handout app. So if you want to write them down, you can do that right on the handout. The first page will be a cover page, pretty self-explanatory, and you can feel free, as these seniors that I pulled from last year, feel free to be creative. And I did want to put a little asterisk here. So when I looked at Taylor Martin's from last year, I was like, wow, I have no idea how to even do a design like that with a photo. And I don't want that to intimidate you, because our donors do not judge based on the cover. I pulled all my seniors from last year. I work with about 50 seniors each year, and I pulled the top 4 grossing scholarship notebooks. And some of them had really fancy artistic covers, and some of them had the basic cover. So the donors really take the time to look into each notebook, and if you feel artistically inclined, go for it. But don't feel pressured or stressed into trying to do something if it's out of your wheelhouse. Table of contents is the next page. So cover page, then table of contents. Table of contents. However, this is a good idea to work on this last, because some of the pages you don't know how much room they're going to take up. So on the template that you see pictured here, it says your test scores, page 5. Maybe you didn't get a chance to take your test, so you erase that. Statement of purpose, it has 2 pages allotted. Maybe you wind up with just 1 page. So I always recommend you edit this last once you have all your pages laid out, so you have the correct page numbers. And again, this is a template, so if you like it to be aligned on the left, align it on the left. If you want your little dots on your table of content, you can do that. In Word and Google Docs, there are options to automatically create table of contents if you want to do that, but that is the first page you'll come to. All right, personal data sheet. This is something you can jump right in and start working on right now. A few helpful hints. Students use a personal email. So if donors need to get in contact with you to get the money to you over the summer, your school email goes away. So don't use that 080 email. Also, if you don't have a professional personal email, create one. So over the years I've spent working with students, I've seen some pretty immature email addresses. So try to avoid that and to make sure you have a nice professional email address to give to the donors. Note about the parent section. So this will ask for your mother, your father, their employers, etc. And every year I have students stare at me blankly because that's not their living situation. They may live with grandparents or mom and stepdad or guardian. So I always tell students, if they're in that situation, the donors want to know who you're connected to. So if you're connected to your mom and stepdad, put that in your scholarship notebook. If you live with your grandparents, you can change from mother and father to grandmother and grandfather. This is a section that you can change to fit who are the people you currently live with, who are the people you are connected to in the community. It also wants to know what organizations your parents are into, your grandparents are into, and for some students, they're like, you know, my grandfather died last year, but he worked in the fire department. And my response is, put that down, because there are still people who are going to remember your grandfather's contribution. If the fire department sponsors a scholarship, you might be considered. So when you come to this section where it's asking for parent connections, it just wants to know what are your connections in the community, what have you and the people who are closest to you done, and that helps us know which places to send the scholarships. Personal data sheet, the second page. For educational history, include all the schools you've attended. So it may sound strange, but certain elementary schools in Port Angeles have scholarships for students who used to attend there. So put your elementary schools, all the schools you've attended, K through 12, activities. I didn't have enough space on the slide to list all the things you may have done during high school, but if you have, some students are like, oh, I didn't do anything, and usually when I talk to them, I can find things to put in this section. Continues with community activities, and the donor specifically asked me to make sure you're specific with how long you've done community activities. So if you've been active in Boys and Girls Club and you went to a weekly meeting for the past 4 years, you'll want to put that, and that would be weighed differently than if you volunteered at the food bank one time for 1 hour. So make sure that as you are putting this down, you're really trying to think back to all the times in the past 4 years you've been able to reach out in the community. For awards and honors, this is another thing you might have to add to that. You might have to subtract that. For each of these sections, feel free to, if you only went to like 3 different schools, subtract the rows. If you have a lot of honors, you can keep adding. So feel free to work with those tables so it fits what you are writing down. All right, the third thing here is one of the most important things. So if you do have a pen or something on your note, this is something that the donors say over and over again. Even if you're undecided, pick something specific. So the reality is, those of you who've applied to colleges, you might not have acceptances by February. Actually, I know some major colleges that don't send out their acceptance letters until March. So write down the colleges you applied to, and if you're unsure of your major, pick something that interests you. So another informal adult poll in the room: how many of you presently are doing what you dreamed of doing when you were in school? All right, I have 2 hands. That's awesome. So I know I had a cousin that from 8 years old wanted to be an architect, and today he is an architect. But that's really, really rare. I don't know how many adults there are in the room, but only 2 raised their hands. I couldn't raise my hand myself. I went to computer school right out of high school, and then I went for elementary education. Then I became a secondary teacher, and now I'm in counseling. So it's like your life evolves, and the donors know that. So when it comes to this section, they know there's a chance, even over the summer, you might change your mind, but put something specific that will help them know more about you. We don't have any donors who approach us and say, I want to give scholarships to undecided students. No one's asking for that. So this is a good opportunity to have those discussions with your seniors, and maybe even go through one of the career surveys on the High School Beyond plan and just try to pick something that would interest them, even if it's not 100% sure yet. All right, so this is the tricky one because the transcript must include your first semester senior year grades. The reason it's tricky for those of you at Port Angeles High School, the semester doesn't end until the end of January. So it ends the last week in January. Teachers have till Tuesday, usually, to get their grades in. I've taught in 4 states, and this is true everywhere. Inevitably, there are teachers who do not get their grades in by Tuesday. So Wednesday, the register is scrambling all around, trying to get those last-minute grades in. So our goal is to have those transcripts ready for you by February 2nd. So we'll be making announcements at school Last year, we just printed every single senior transcript and had a big pile in the main office where you could come pick them up. You can get them printed out in the guidance department, but that, for most students, will be the very last thing you do in Scholarship Notebook. For my Running Start students, your semester either has ended or is very close to ending, so your transcripts usually do get available earlier, mid-January. So if I find out that, I'll let you know. We do have a new registrar coming on, so there's uncertainty, but we are aiming for February 2nd, that piece of paper being ready for you. This is a quick one because it's optional. Did anyone in here get a chance to take the SAT? Okay, I have a minority of hands going up. So if you took this and you're really confident with your score, by all means put it in. But for most colleges, all the ones I've worked with the past 2 years have made this optional due to circumstances. And so it gives you a real edge. If you got a great score, put it in. If it's meh, you can leave it out and it won't hurt you. And most Port Angeles seniors did not get a chance to even take this, so it won't hurt you. Moving on, statement of purpose. So this is like a personal statement about yourself, telling your story, and I put that at the top because it needs to be about you. A mistake I see students make is they repeat everything that's in the personal data sheet. So they list their awards, they list the same things the donors have already read. This is a chance for you to tell more about your personality, other than what they can read on your transcript, other than what they can read on the list. It's a great chance if you really didn't like online learning and didn't do as well last year, to explain some of those struggles. Or if any year you had some obstacles that you overcame that were reflected in grades, you can put that in your statement of purpose. This really helps the donors see the full picture of who you are and where you've come from. I can honestly say from talking to donors that they do read these and form their awards based on statement of purpose. From some of my students last year who had struggled and maybe didn't have the highest GPAs but wrote a great statement of purpose, they considered those as well. So use this very strategically. A lot of students are like, I don't know what to write about. It's hard to talk about yourself. So you can talk about motivation, like what motivates you? Who motivates you? And finally, this is a specific request from a donor, actually our very largest donor, that about 50% of our money runs through this organization. The donor requests that you express how the scholarship would help you. So if you're lower income and it would really help, please express that. If you're middle to high income, but your student's looking at going to a college that's like 70 and 80 grand a year, and that would be really hard, express that. The donors want to know that their money is going where it's needed, so it's good to conclude a statement of purpose with how much it would help to receive a scholarship. All right, this is a little different for those of you who've been filling out college applications. They might ask for 1 letter or 2 letters, but very, very few ask for 3 letters of recommendation. So you do need 3 for your scholarship notebook. At least 1 has to be from a teacher, but up to 2 can be school related. And then on your handout, it has a list of ideas of other adults in your life. Rule of thumb, don't ask anyone who's related to you. But if you have a neighbor or an employer who would put in a good word for you, you can see that whole list on your handout for ideas but 3 letters of recommendation in your scholarship notebook. Also in bold is ask early. Now is the time to be asking if you haven't already, because letters take time, and writing a good letter takes time. Do I have any people who've ever worked in education in the room? Okay, 1, 2, 3 hands. So, especially for the teachers, you can imagine what it's like to teach all day, have grading, have lesson plans, and then have 12 students who asked you for a letter of recommendation. When they all come at once, it's really overwhelming. I can testify to that. And inevitably, I have students 2 days before scholarship notebook. I haven't started. And so please, please, please ask early for these. It makes a world of difference. At the very back of your handout is this page. This is really helpful for teachers to really flesh out your letter and make it nice and long. For me, when I was in the classroom, I taught history, so I might not know as much about what my student is doing in their other classes, what awards they're winning in their other classes, what they're involved in with sports and things like that. So this page, when you give it to a teacher, it helps them really give you a good letter of recommendation that includes their experience with you, but also drops in little facts about how well-rounded you are. It's really the best to have a letter of recommendation that fills up the whole page. As I was looking through scholarship notebooks, I came across one that had a letter of recommendation that took up this much of the page, and that's not ideal. So when you give them this, it really helps you get a nice long letter of recommendation. All right, I won't go through this line by line, but the final section of your scholarship notebook, this is the most scrapbooky part of the notebook, and it really gives the big picture of you, what you're interested in, and I came up with this list by going over old scholarship notebooks and just writing what students have included in the stack section in the past. For your awards and certificates, you can take photos of them and put them in your notebook. You can scan them and put them in your notebook. And you can see this is quite a long list. I thought a neat idea from a student last year was he just had a page that said, "This is me," and it had him and his pets and him and his family. And it really, you never know. There might be a donor that also has horses or also has a dog of that same breed. You never know what will resonate with the donors that you put in this last section. Maybe they like baking too, or photography, or they played that sport. It's just very interesting sometimes what they latch on to. One of my students last year put a picture of her hiking and all the different scenic overlooks, and she received a hiking scholarship, that was the name of it, for $2,000 a year. And you just never know. So this back section, you can have as many pages as you want as long as you don't go over a 20-page maximum. So this end section usually can run up to 10 pages if you have enough stuff to put back there. All right, final steps. So when it comes to that time where you have everything in order, I recommend you proofread. I recommend you have an adult proofread, maybe 2 adults, because it always helps to have as many eyes on it as you can. After you're sure that everything's just so, you're going to save all your pages. So if you've worked in Word, if you've worked in Google Docs, each page you'll save as a PDF. And then you will join all of those separate documents into one PDF. And the easiest way to do that is with a Google extension called .hub. And because none of us are to this point, and we won't be with to this point till we get our transcripts. I won't go into it now, but we will be sending out video tutorials when the time comes. So you've joined everything in the one PDF. What comes next? You're going to jump back into Google Classroom, and at that point there will be a new assignment. It says Final Step. You'll go in there and you'll see an additional form. You'll click on the form, and in this form there's a questionnaire, and these questions help us determine what donors see what notebooks. So by the time you get to this step, you might be really tired and tempted to just halfway do it, but this information is critical for matching donors with scholarships, so make sure it's accurate, make sure you're being thorough, answering these final questions, and then before you hit submit, you will answer a prompt, and the next slide has your choices. So this year you are going to have 5 different choices to answer in 20 words or less. So this is a really short blurb about yourself, answering one of these prompts, 20 words or less, and this is going to be on your slide for awards night. So when you get your award, the PowerPoint will come up, it'll show the headshot that you uploaded, and it'll also show your 20-word answer to the prompt. So some students go through and they don't know what the prompt is for, and they put something real funny and dumb, and then they're like, oh, I didn't know I was going to go up in front of everyone. So you are warned that your answer to the prompt will be shown on awards night, as well as the headshot that you put up. All right, this is the final slide. And one thing at a time, again, try not to use this word. If you are undecided, even if you're waffling between 2 things, put them down. Anything rather than undecided, unsure is going to be better for you. So there are a few things I'm saying twice, and it's because they're important. This is another one. The people who are writing your letters, give them as much time as possible. And remember to say thank you. So a lot of students end their scholarship notebook with a thank you page. Thank you for taking the time to look over my notebook. And as I was talking to one person on staff who has written many letters of recommendation already this year for college acceptances, and this person said they have not received one thank you, like not even an email thank you or a verbal thank you. So saying thank you is something that's getting to be really rare, that when you do it, it's like, wow, that's a wonderful young person. So be that young person and say thank you when people write you a letter, because usually they've taken a lot of time to really invest in your future that way. Another reminder, don't go over 20 pages. Some of our donors sift through 50 notebooks or more, so 20 pages for their sake is a good number to cut off. And we have some workshops coming up. So the workshops, we might start with like 5-minute, 10-minute, like different reminders, but the workshop is for you to come to work, for us to be here to look over your shoulder and be like, oh yes, you're going to do it this way. So if you come out to the workshops, the 3 of us will be here and be helping you in the library to actually put your notebook together. If you need things scanned, we can do that there too. January 11th and February 3rd, and we will be advertising these through all the avenues that you found out about this night. All right, big date here. February 6th is the due date. That's at midnight, February 6th. And again, as soon as you get that transcript, it would be wonderful if you had everything ready to go, and save you some stress over that weekend if you can get it in early. My final reminder is I'm really happy to help. I'm excited to do this. I'm excited, like, it's a great part of my year when my students do scholarship notebooks and then they win money for their future. It makes me really happy. I'm here to help Ms. Kozlowski and Mr. Moore in the back. That's what our job is. We're here to help. So please ask questions. Let us know if you need anything. And that is what we're here for. All right, do I have any audience questions? Anything that was not covered? All right, yes. So the question is about those who are running START students, and do they print the transcript off from Peninsula College via their login there? So that's a great question because you could have your transcript from Peninsula College, but that would show, if you did running START in 11th grade, it would only show 11th and 12th, your running START classes. And this transcript does need to have your 9th and 10th grade as well. So you will have to get it from Port Angeles High School. And the date that running START transcripts will be available is to be determined. I will check on that and keep checking like the Scholarship Notebook Google Classroom, and when they become available, I'll put an announcement, hey, running START students, come get your transcript. So you will be potentially able to finish your notebook before the students who are all in person here. But it does have to come through the high school. Yes.
What are the places where students can find scholarships besides through this scholarship, through your help? And then can they send their scholarship notebook to these other places too? Or do they just follow the, whatever that procedure is for that scholarship?
The question is about scholarships and how to find them outside of the scholarship notebook. So if you are looking to stay in state, the best website is called thewashboard.org. And in addition to that, we posted, actually on the Scholarship Notebook Google Classroom, we posted some additional scholarship opportunities that come through the school. There's Palance. College Success Foundation has a scholarship that is open to all students. This is different because it used to be a smaller group of students, but this year it's open to all seniors, and that's up to $5,000 a year for 4 years, so that's a great one. If I have any students who are looking to go to college out of state, I always recommend they look at that college. So if I had one, University of Arizona, a few days ago, we went to the university's website, looked up scholarships, and they had a whole scholarship portal just for that university. And that's the best way to narrow your search for that particular university. I always avoid the bigger scholarship searches, like scholarships.com. I haven't had students have great success with those big scholarships websites because so many students are on there. So it's always better to narrow your search by school if you're going out of state. And that's another thing you can do for in-state too, is if you go to your school's website, look up scholarships, there'll be more. Most scholarships have a separate application for you to fill out. So I don't think that I've heard of anyone being able to reuse their scholarship notebook, but there are like the Palance Scholarship in Port Angeles. That does require a scholarship notebook, and there are a few of our other scholarships that aren't connected to scholarship notebook that require one, but that's 3 or 4 scholarships that I can think of that are local, not on a larger level.
Are most of the scholarships just for 1 year, or do they continue?
I don't have the exact breakdown of if they're renewable or not. There's so many scholarships that are awarded through the scholarship notebook. Many of them are renewable, so that's a good question. The ones that are renewable, most of them you have to keep a 2.5 or higher GPA. Some of them require that you communicate with your donor. So after your freshman year, you touch base, tell them how you're doing, and they decide, oh, it's good to hear. I've renewed with you for the second year. So it's based on each scholarship, and when you come to awards night, you get an envelope, and it'll tell you the specifics for each scholarship. This one's renewable. This one requires you to have this GPA, etc. Any other questions? All great questions so far. Do you see any others, Matthew?
I think we're good. But yeah, we're good.
I have another question. Someone asked me how did parents know about this meeting? Because they hadn't heard about it, and I don't even remember where I saw it. I saw it in the daily bulletin on the website. That's where I saw it. But I guess that's for students anyway. So where did parents hear about it?
Okay, so I put it on the Port Angeles High School Facebook page, if you have Facebook. We've been announcing it every day at school, and we sent out 3 Google reminders. So I sent out one Monday, one Tuesday, one Wednesday, and Matthew sent out another one today. So that's where, for Running Start students, please check your Google, because that's a big way that we are communicating with you.
Posted it on her Google Classroom as well.
Yes, so it was posted on my Google Classroom, Mrs. Snell's Counseling Corner, and the Scholarship Notebook Google Classroom. So that's the best way to get information out. And if you have Facebook and you follow the school, I always try to put a little blurb out for there too.
Do you know the date of the award tonight yet?
It's usually late May.
We don't have a specific date that I know of yet, but it will be at the end of May.
All right, so the end of May, so we get them in February. It takes time to send them to the donors, and then all the donors have their different meetings of finding who they want to give the awards to. But ever since I've been here, it's been late May, usually Tuesday or Thursday. All right, going once. Yes.
I have a suggestion because sometimes I miss information about for the senior information, my kid doing the Running Start. So is there any way for school or somebody like you to get a mass email parents for the senior parents so we will be in the loop for easy or any information? Because my kid didn't find out about the order for the cap and gown until later. And I saw that from my friend's Facebook because she posted it. So I just thought maybe this would have a better system to inform parents and students that not regularly come to school because they are running stuff.
So tell her to make sure she has her email up to date because we send out emails through Skype. So make sure that because there are always postings up through Skype.
All right, I personally have access to email all the students through their Google accounts, but not all the parents in one fell swoop. But the counselors are able to do that through Skyward. But I know every time that I've tried to do that, my email ping, 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 undeliverable, 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 undeliverable. So it might be helpful to call the school and make sure that the email they have is one that you check and that it doesn't have a 5 instead of an S, or any little thing could throw that off. So would be helpful to jump in and make sure. And I will make sure all the counseling department knows for our events that an email through Skyward would be helpful.